On my 27th birthday, the room smelled like money. Crystal glasses, perfume, laughter that didn't belong to me. My grandfather lifted his champagne and smiled. "How do you spend your $400,000 trust fund, Evelyn?" The world tilted. I blinked once, twice. What trust fund? The fork stopped clinking. My mother's hand froze mid-gesture. My father's throat moved like he'd swallowed a stone. Then Grandpa turned calm as ever. Where did the money go? His question split the air open, and in that silence under chandeliers and fake smiles, I realized this dinner wasn't a celebration. It was an execution. My name is Evelyn Hart, and until that night, I thought I understood my family. I grew up believing success was measured in silence. Smile at the table, don't ask too many questions, and never talk about money. I lived in San Francisco now, far from their marble floors and polished cars, working as a freelance designer out of a small apartment in the Mission District. The walls peeled, the pipes hissed, but it was mine. I'd spend nights sketching logos while the city hummed outside coffee cooling beside overdue bills. My parents, James and Victoria, lived 20 minutes away in Marin County, 4 bedrooms, a pool, a Tesla for each. We talked, but never about real things. Calls began with "how's work" and ended before I could answer. The last time they'd surprised me was at my college graduation. I'd walked the stage holding $70,000 in student loans and a diploma I'd earned alone. They hugged me, handed me a wrapped box, and said, "We're so proud." Inside was a hardcover book, Financial Literacy for Young Adults. I smiled for the photos. That night I cried over the sink, realizing they hadn't planned to help. Still, I kept my head down. I paid rent, skipped dinners, took every freelance job I could find. When friends posted vacation photos, I laughed it off. One day I'd say, one day I'd make enough to breathe. A week before my 27th birthday, my boss called me into his glass office. His face said everything before he spoke. "I'm sorry, Evelyn. We're downsizing." I boxed up my things, took the bus home, and sat on my couch with Madison, my roommate, my anchor, my only constant for 2 years. "Your parents will help, right?" she asked. I laughed, bitter and hollow. "They'll probably suggest a budgeting app." That night I called anyway. "Mom, I lost my job." "Oh, that's too bad, honey," she said, her keyboard clicking in the background. "But you'll figure it out. You always do." "I'm behind on rent, Mom. I don't know how." "Well, maybe this will teach you to save better. Anyway, we're making reservations for your birthday dinner, Atelier Cren, 7:30. Don't be late. Mom, that place is $300 a plate." She laughed. "Don't be cheap, Evelyn. It's your birthday. Dress nicely." The line went dead before I could say goodbye. I stared at my reflection in the dark TV screen, tired eyes, split ends, lipstick fading. $300 a plate, I whispered. "That's half my grocery budget." Madison looked up from the couch. "You don't have to go." "Yeah, I do. In my family, skipping dinner is worse than blasphemy." So I circled the date on the calendar the way people mark the day they'll face a firing squad. The week dragged toward my birthday like a slow leak. I tried to stay busy sending resumes, updating my portfolio, but rejection emails piled up faster than I could open them. My savings account dipped under 4 digits. Every noise from the hallway made me flinch, half expecting the landlord's knock. By Friday, I'd stopped sleeping. Madison found me at 2 a.m., still hunched over my laptop. "Eve, go to bed," she said softly. "I can't. If I stop, I'll think about it." "About what?" "That dinner. Them. Acting like everything's perfect while I'm falling apart." She squeezed my shoulder. "Then make it the last time they treat you like that." I didn't know what she meant yet, but those words stayed. Saturday came bright and sharp. I stood in front of my closet staring at the same 3 options. Jeans too faded, a blazer missing a button, and a black dress I'd bought 3 years ago for a job interview. I chose the dress. It still fit mostly. On the bus ride to the restaurant, I watched people through the window, tourists laughing, couples holding hands, a kid licking ice cream that dripped down his arm. I envied how simple their moments were. Atelier Cren shimmered with glass and gold. My parents were already seated when I arrived, my mother in a red silk dress, my father in his tailored navy suit. The table gleamed with wine glasses and silverware I couldn't name. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Mom air-kissed me, her perfume so strong it made my eyes sting. Dad smiled. You look tired. Rough week. Lost my job, I said quietly. He nodded like I'd mentioned the weather. Well, that happens. You'll bounce back. They launched into stories about their Europe trip, the new Tesla's autopilot feature, a renovation project for the guest bathroom. My words dissolved in the noise. I kept glancing at the door, counting the minutes. I was supposed to feel celebrated, but I felt like a prop in their perfect picture. Then the door opened. A ripple of surprise swept the room as my grandfather walked in. Robert Hart, silver-haired, tall, every step measured. The maitre d' nearly tripped, trying to escort him. My mother's smile faltered. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked, voice an octave too high. "Celebrating my granddaughter, of course." His eyes found mine. "Happy birthday, Evelyn." He hugged me real solid warm, and I felt the first breath I'd taken all night. "I didn't know you were coming," I said. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." He sat down beside me, ordered whiskey neat, and started polite conversation. But there was an edge in his voice I couldn't place, like he already knew something none of us did. Then he smiled at me, raised his glass, and said the words that changed everything. The whiskey caught the light as my grandfather lifted his glass. "So, Evelyn," he said tone casual, "how do you spend your $3.4 million trust fund?" The air shattered. I heard my heartbeat before the silence registered. I blinked. Once? Twice? What trust fund every fork stopped mid-air? My mother's smile cracked like porcelain. My father's throat moved as if he'd swallowed glass. My grandfather's expression didn't change. He simply leaned back in his chair. "The trust I set up when you were born. Your parents were supposed to transfer it to you when you turned 25. My mother laughed too fast. "Oh, Dad, you must be mistaken." "There was Victoria," he said quietly. "Don't." It was the first time in my life I'd seen her go still. He turned to the waiter. "Private room, please." Within minutes, we were ushered away, plates half-eaten, champagne forgotten. The door closed behind us with a soft click that sounded final. Inside, the air was colder. My grandfather's assistant, Michelle, was already there, tablet open. A man in a tailored suit waited beside her. Michael Anderson, his attorney. "This won't take long," Grandpa said. "I just want clarity." Michael opened a folder, slid a stack of papers across the table. "Miss Hart, this is the trust account created under your name. Initial deposit, $1 million. Current value given market growth should be approximately $3.4 million. My fingers hovered above the paper. "Should be." He nodded grimly. "As of this morning, the balance is $200,000. The words landed like a physical hit. $200,000. 25 years of savings investments, interest gone. Grandpa's gaze never left my parents. "Explain." Dad wiped his forehead. We used some of it, just to cover the mortgage when the market crashed." Some Grandpa's voice stayed calm. "That's over $3 million, James." Mom's hands trembled around her clutch. "We were managing it. For her future. We didn't want her to waste it." I laughed short, sharp, ugly. "You mean like wasting it on rent or student loans or food?" Mom turned to me, her eyes glassy. "Sweetheart, we only wanted what's best for you. You gave me a book on financial literacy for graduation." My voice cracked. "While you were draining my account." Grandpa raised a hand. The room went quiet again. "Enough." He turned to Michelle. "List the withdrawals." She read, her voice mechanical. "Mortgage payoff, $450,000. Vehicle purchases, 2 Tesla Model S, $280,000. Home renovation, $320,000. Investment in Victoria Hart Real Estate, $500,000. Marked total loss. Each line felt like another blow. Then she paused. "Purchase of property in Malibu, $1.8 million. Currently registered under James and Victoria Hart." I stared at them. "A beach house." My father's face went slack. "It was an investment. It was theft," Grandpa said quietly, "from your own daughter." No one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the air vent. Finally, Grandpa pushed back his chair. "Give me the keys." Mom's eyes darted toward her purse. She hesitated, then pulled out a small key ring, 2 keys and a fob. Her hands shook as she set them on the table. Grandpa slid them across to me. "These are yours, 2 years late." They were still warm from her palm when I picked them up. My keys, my apartment, my life that had been kept from me. Mom started to cry soft, practiced sobs. "Please, Dad, don't do this. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family," he said. "You'll hear from my lawyers tomorrow." They left the room slowly as if gravity had doubled. The door closed and the air felt lighter but emptier. Grandpa turned to me. "Evelyn, I'll have a full audit done. They'll face legal consequences. But the decision to press charges, it's yours." I looked down at the keys, metal cold against my skin. For years, I'd begged for scraps of approval. Now I held proof that their love had a price tag. "I need time," I whispered. "Take it," he said. But know this, they were planning to run. Michelle found tickets to Costa Rica bought 3 days ago. My chest tightened. They came to dinner knowing this was goodbye. He nodded, and they smiled while doing it. That night, I left the restaurant with the keys in my pocket and a storm in my chest. Outside, the city lights blurred through the fog. Madison was waiting up when I got home. When I told her everything, she stared at me like I just recited a crime scene report. "They stole from you," she whispered. "Your own parents. Not just money," I said. "Years." I looked out the window at the sleeping city and felt something break and something else begin. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to take everything back, quietly. 3 days after that dinner, I was summoned to my grandfather's office, a glass tower downtown that looked like it could slice the sky. I barely slept since the night of the reveal. The words, "They were planning to run," played on loop in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's trembling hand dropping the keys. My father's silence that felt like confession. When I arrived, Michelle was already waiting in the lobby, immaculate as always, tablet in hand. "They're here," she said quietly. "Robert wanted you present." My stomach tightened. "Both of them." She nodded. "They came to negotiate." Negotiate. That word tasted wrong. The elevator opened to the top floor, glass walls, leather chairs, the faint scent of cedar and old money. Grandpa sat behind his desk posture, straight hands clasped. Across from him sat my parents. Dad looked 10 years older. Mom was trying to smile, but the gloss on her lips cracked at the corners. Evelyn Grandpa said, voice steady, "Sit." I sat opposite them. No one spoke for a moment. The only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were just..." Desperate Grandpa's voice was cold. "Trying to stay afloat," Dad said. "You wouldn't understand. I understand, greed," Grandpa interrupted. "I built an empire on recognizing it." Mom reached forward, tears already in her eyes. "We love her, Dad. We were going to tell her eventually, when after you finish selling the Malibu house Silence." Michael Anderson, the attorney, stepped forward, setting a stack of printed bank statements on the desk. "The forensic audit is complete," he said. "Every transaction traced, every property connected. We've recovered approximately $2 million through asset seizures and forced sales." My father rubbed his temples. $2 million? We already... "You didn't recover it," Michael said sharply. "We did, through the law." I watched the scene from what felt like outside my own body. Every lie peeled away, every secret dragged into the light. Michelle handed me a folder. Inside were photos of my parents' purchases. The Malibu property, luxury cars, jewelry receipts, cruise bookings, all funded by my trust. "You should know what they valued more than you," she said softly. I swallowed hard. "This is enough to press criminal charges, isn't it?" "Yes," Michael replied. "Felony financial fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Up to 10 years. Mom gasped. "Evelyn, you wouldn't please." Her voice broke like a child's, but I didn't flinch. "I didn't do this," I said. "You did." My father leaned forward, desperation bleeding through the calm facade. "We made mistakes, but prison. We're your parents." "Parents protect," I said quietly. "They don't pillage." Grandpa turned to me. "It's your choice, sweetheart." The room blurred around me, the skyline behind glass, the papers, the trembling hands across the desk. I thought of 27 years of dinners where I smiled through silence, of student loans I'd paid with ramen and overtime, of birthdays where they sent flowers but not love. I met my mother's eyes. "You left me with nothing. Now you have exactly that." The words landed like thunder. Mom's shoulders collapsed. Dad looked away, jaw clenched. Grandpa nodded once to Michael. File the necessary motions. Mom reached across the table, voice shaking. Dad, please, she's your granddaughter, and you are my daughter, he said. But there's a difference between blood and character. She began to sob real this time. It wasn't for me. It was for everything they were losing. As the lawyers finalized the papers, I stood and walked to the window. The city stretched below, cranes, cars, the slow pulse of people living their lives. I pressed my hand to the glass, the cold grounding me. For the first time in years, I wasn't small. Behind me, I heard Grandpa say, "Keys, deeds, accounts all transferred back to Evelyn. Effective immediately." When I turned, Michelle handed me a slim envelope. "These are your property documents. Pacific Heights fully under your name now." I nodded. "Thank you." Mom whispered something, her voice barely audible. "You'll regret this." I looked at her, really looked. The woman who taught me to keep my voice soft, my needs smaller, my worth tied to approval. "No," I said. "For once I won't." They left soon after, escorted out by security. The door closed. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. Grandpa stood slowly, walking over to me. "You did the right thing." "I don't feel good," I admitted. "Justice rarely feels good," he said, "but it's necessary." He put a hand on my shoulder, firm and steady. "You're not alone anymore, Evelyn. You never were." That night I went to see the apartment, the one I'd never been allowed to step inside. Pacific Heights was quiet, all glass and steel and bay views. The doorman recognized my name immediately. "Mr. Hart said you'd be coming." When I unlocked the door, the smell of expensive candles hit me first. Everything was staged neutral tones, marble counters, a coffee table book about modern design. A stranger's life furnished with my money. I wandered through the rooms, fingertips brushing the walls, the furniture, the evidence. On the counter, a lease folder, tenants' names, rent deposits. My parents had been collecting money for years. I sank onto the couch and laughed, the sound raw. Then the laughter broke into tears. Not grief anymore, but release. Madison arrived 20 minutes later, holding takeout. "You're really here," she whispered, eyes wide. "I'm home," I said. She looked around, smiled. "So, how does justice feel?" "Quiet," I said, "and heavier than I thought." We ate sitting on the floor cartons, spread out like old times. Through the windows, the bay shimmered with city lights. Somewhere behind me, the keys gleamed on the counter, a reminder of everything that had been stolen and everything I'd taken back. Before bed, I texted Grandpa, moved in. "Thank you for fighting when I couldn't." His reply came a minute later. "You always could, Evelyn. You just needed proof." I stared at that message until the screen dimmed. Proof of what they'd done and who I'd become. A month passed before I could sleep without waking in the middle of the night expecting another secret to surface. But the investigation moved quickly. My parents' assets, both Tesla's, the Malibu house, even the country club membership, were liquidated. The proceeds poured back into my account under my name where they should have always been. They moved into a roadside motel in Oakland. Grandpa told me in a quiet voice, "They're paying restitution. $500 a month." Court ordered. I didn't feel joy when he said it, just balance. I settled into the apartment in Pacific Heights. Each morning the fog rolled over the bay like breath. I'd sit on the balcony with coffee laptop open, freelancing again. Clients came, fast referrals from Grandpa's network startups that needed branding. For once I wasn't scrambling, I was building. Madison came over every weekend. We hung art, unpacked boxes, made the place ours. "You realize," she said once, laughing, "you could buy this whole building now." "I don't want to own more things," I said. "Just more peace." Weeks turned into months. My name was on everything now, bank accounts, titles, deeds. But it wasn't the money that settled me. It was the ownership of my life. One evening, Grandpa invited me to dinner. He looked frailer but lighter, as if some weight had lifted. "You did what I couldn't," he told me. "You drew a line." I smiled. "You taught me how." That night, driving home through the city, I passed the restaurant where it all began. Through the glass, people were laughing, toasting, unaware of how fast a family can fracture over greed. I didn't stop. Some chapters deserved to stay closed. Finally, I learned that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. My parents stole my future and called it love, but I took it back piece by piece, quietly, legally, completely. Now, when I look out over the bay, I don't see what I lost. I see what I rebuilt. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, remember this: you can still start over stronger than before. And if stories like mine hit close to home, stay with me. The next one might sound uncomfortably familiar. Hit subscribe and don't look away.